My name is Jeremy, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. You might be surprised to hear this story begins with a wedding, a beautiful celebration of love, but for me it began with humiliation, a public moment that changed everything. It happened at my sister Mia's wedding. As the father of the groom, Mr. Caldwell raised his glass, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "I just hope," he said as the room went silent, "that this marriage brings stability to your family. God knows she didn't get that from him." A few uncomfortable chuckles followed, but the silence was deafening. Mia froze beside her new husband. Grant, her smile disappeared, her eyes darting to me. She knew what he was doing, and she knew I wouldn't let it go. I stood up slowly and said in a calm, cold voice, "Do you even know who I am?" His face went completely pale as 147 guests watched. I watched him for a moment, and then I took them all back to the beginning. Mia was 8 years old when our mother passed away from an overdose in the next room. I was 18, but I lied to the social workers and signed all of her school papers. I let her believe I was invincible. I worked nights and skipped college, so she could have ballet lessons, birthday parties, and braces. I wanted her to have a soft life, so I stayed hard. People like Mr. Caldwell, her new father-in-law, don't do things quietly. I first met him 6 months ago when Mia invited me to dinner at their family's estate. He looked at me like I was a stray dog tracking dirt on his pristine floors. I was wearing a nice suit, but he looked me up and down with a smirk. "What exactly do you do?" he asked dismissively. I told him I own a few companies. "Ah, a self-starter." He replied, "That explains the shoes." He wouldn't know Italian leather even if he wore it himself. I didn't say anything. I knew he wasn't worth my energy. The second time we met, Mia was crying in my apartment because Mr. Caldwell had told her she wasn't wedding material and that having me walk her down the aisle would make his family look low. Something inside me snapped, and I felt a cold resolve settle over me. Mia told me she wouldn't get married without me giving her away then. I told her, "We'll give them a wedding they'll never forget." I started researching him after that. His investments were risky, and his public companies had inflated valuations and shaky ethics. I quietly bought into 3 of his main suppliers, and then I pulled the strings just enough to cause delays, shortages, and bad publicity. His company's stock dropped 7%. I also leaked a rumor about an SEC audit, which caused the market to panic. While all this was happening, he was smiling in family photos and shaking hands with politicians. Now back to the wedding. I watched him squirm under the silence that followed my question. He tried to laugh it off. "You're the brother, of course." He stammered, "The ER protector." I looked him in the eye. "I'm the reason Mia didn't end up in the system. And I'm also the reason your company is under federal investigation." His phone buzzed. Exactly on cue, he glanced at his phone, and his face went white. The reporter I had lunch with had just published a detailed article on his money laundering, insider trading, and backroom deals. A gasp rippled across the room. Harold opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. "Don't." I said, "You've embarrassed yourself enough." Then I turned to Mia and offered my arm. Her eyes were filled with tears, but her hand was steady as she took my arm. We walked down the aisle, not to music, but to complete silence. It was a different kind of ceremony, a ceremony that ended with the public destruction of one man's illusion of power. The fallout was swift. By morning, his board had released a statement, and by night his assets were frozen, and 3 subpoenas were sent to him. MIA and Grant delayed their honeymoon to Italy. I told them not to worry. My part is done. I said, "Enjoy Italy. It's quiet now. I sit on my balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the city lights, and I know the world keeps turning. The predators just look different in their suits and cufflinks." Mia texted me later, "You didn't have to do that for me." I replied, "I didn't. I did it for the kid whose brother gave her everything and was still called not enough. I didn't do it for applause or revenge. I did it for balance. People like Harold Wright forget that power isn't always loud. And that family doesn't come with conditions, and I sleep just fine knowing that